All right, so let's move on to the next type of Lewis structure. So far we've looked at the simplest that has just two atoms bonded together. We did a little more complex, which means we had more than two atoms bonded together. So we've talked about a central atom. So we can clearly see that this structure is going to have more than two atoms. We're going to have a central atom. Okay, so let's start with our carbon. And again, we should already have a periodic table out so that we can determine valence electrons. So carbon is in group 14. If I subtract 10, carbon would have 4 valence electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just as a reminder, if carbon's present, carbon should be your central atom because it needs to bond the most number of times. It should bond 4 times. Okay. All right, then we have oxygen. And so oxygen's in group 16, which means it will have 6 valence electrons. So remember that we're going to put single dots, and then we'll put pairs of dots. Okay, so you should be laying out your little squares. Right. So we can look at carbon and see that carbon only has non-bonding or only has bonding electrons. And we can look at oxygen and see that oxygen has 2 non-bonding or lone pairs, and it has 2 bonding electrons. Okay, so we're going to slide these over and we're going to put carbon in the center here because it's our central atom. And we're going to slide oxygen over. Okay, so I can clearly see that here's my oxygen carbon bond, but my oxygen here has to bond again because I can't have single dots lying around. They're meant to bond. So we're going to slide these together. And so the purpose of this Lewis structure is to show you that you can have multiple covalent bonds. Okay. So in this case, carbon and oxygen are sharing 2 pairs of electrons. So we would call this a double covalent bond. Okay. Now I can look at the formula at the top and see that I'm supposed to have a second oxygen. And so again, that second oxygen is going to have 2 lone pairs. Okay. And then it's going to have 2 bonding electrons. So obviously there's one here. And so if we look at carbon, okay, carbon has one more electron that needs to bond, and so does oxygen. So this one will also have a double bond. So we can draw this Lewis structure with the dots. Or we could draw it so that we would replace these 2 pairs of dots with 2 lines that connect each carbon and oxygen. And then there are oxygen's lone pairs. Okay. All right, so the idea here is this. If once you've put your molecule together and you see that there are still bonding electrons left over, then you need to think about putting those bonding electrons together to make a double covalent bond, for example.